What about Donald Trump? For the first time in his life, he's going to be indicted. And he is going to be, in a matter of speaking, arrested. And he's going to be mugshotted. And he's going to be charged with a crime, maybe more than one, in the city of New York. Here in Fulton County, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, there's also criminal indictments that are going to come. There is the federal investigation by the special counsel for the Justice Department, Jack Smith, who is also going to ask a grand jury to indict this filthy pig. But here we are, and what is the filthy pig doing? He's telling his brown shirts to protest his arrest. I would like to ask these brown shirts a question, you dumbasses. If you were to be arrested for something similar, would you ask Trump to come stand out in front of your courthouse and protest your arrest? No, I don't think so. And don't act like that is a completely out of proportion request. It isn't. Trump is as much of a goddamn thug and a grifter and a liar as anyone who shoplifts or tries to steal a car or tries to hold up a bank. That's what his whole life has been. So if he is indicted by this Manhattan grand jury this week, and it's for his role in paying off one of his honeys, a porn star, paying her off, then trying to hide it. You know, it's just typical Trump shit. But if he is indicted, he will be read the standard Miranda warning. Mr. Trump, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law. You're entitled to an attorney. If you can't afford one, or if no one wants to represent you, shit, we'll give you one. We don't, something like that. He'll be told that he has the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney, just like any little grifting son of a bitch that finally gets caught. Now, those are among the routine steps that are taken during a felony arrest in New York City. But yes, as we've heard 1,000 times, to the point where I'm just so goddamn sick of hearing it, this is an unprecedented arrest of a former president of the United States. Yeah. Trump's arrest is going to be anything but routine. Now, let's be real here for a moment, because anything about Trump is surreal. But to be real here for a moment, the agents of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office is not going to go wherever Trump happens to be, one of his golf courses or Mar-a-Lago, and arrest him and put him in cuffs and perp walk him out to a car. That's not going to happen. I wish it would. I would like to see this grifting, dirty, filthy pig, no offense to pigs, I'm sorry, get what he so honestly has earned over his entire corrupt, filthy life. But last week, senior officials from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and the state agency in New York State that runs the courts had some discussions about the mechanics of the possible indictment, and then he has to go before a judge for an arraignment. It may be, and he also has to have a mugshot. Did I mention that to you? Oh, God, that's going to make a great campaign ad, isn't it? Donald Trump's mugshot. Oh, you son of a bitch. In addition to that discussion with the district attorney's office and the New York courts, officials from the Manhattan Police Department, which patrols the streets, obviously, outside the Lower Manhattan Courthouse, and the officers who handle security inside the criminal courts building, where he would be arraigned, everybody had to get together and have a discussion about how many of these rotten son of a bitches who show up, these proud pricks and 3%ers and proto-Nazis, how many of these pricks that show up should they kill? Should they immediately make them all headshots or gut shots when these pigs try to rescue the chief pig? Should they shoot to wound, which is more Hollywood than it is Manhattan Police Department, I understand. But what should the cops do when the scum, the filth, the white male Nazis show up in support of their Fuhrer? What are the cops supposed to do? Also on Sunday, yesterday, more than a dozen, according to the New York Times, more than a dozen senior police department officials and two of that city's top public safety aides, mayor's safety aides, held a virtual meeting to discuss security too. And also what they're going to do, contingency plans when these protests occur. Because the pig, the orange vomit, immediately, remember last week, when was it, Friday, Saturday, when he said, I'm going to be arrested on Tuesday. He doesn't know if he's going to be arrested on Tuesday or not. Protests, protests, protests. Jesus Christ. So the brown shirts in this country, the little white boy Nazi bastards, they have gotten their call to arms from Donald Trump. And that meeting among the senior police department officials in Manhattan, according to reports, that followed a call from Trump himself in a post on his little toy social media site to this is Saturday morning, to protest, all caps, protest. Excuse me. Sorry, I didn't hit the mute button in time. That's the thing about this cough. It's persistent. But in all caps, he exhorted his brown shirts, take our nation back. Now, you know what I would love to see happen? I would love to see some real American patriot who would have to be willing to face life in prison without the possibility of parole, or in New York State, maybe even a death sentence. But I would like to see an American patriot respond to this shit coming out of this wannabe dictator's mouth in a manner that would be entirely different from just reading him his rights and then letting his brown shirts storm across the country with their burning and looting and pillaging, which they surely will do. Now, what the Orange Vomit said on his Truth Social was very similar to what the bastard screamed right before the January 6, 2021 assault on the nation's capital. It's the same words, and Trump and the filth around him, his filthy, rotten family, his hangers-on, his minions, they're all expecting the brown shirts, and the brown shirts will be there, not to let Donnie down. It's worth mentioning also that security is also a very important issue. In the office of the district attorney handling this, Alvin Bragg, who happens to be a Democrat, who happens to be the first black person to lead that office. Those are just circumstances that have intersected at a time when a racist pig son of a bitch named Donald Trump is facing, finally, some sort of being forced to take responsibility for what he's done his entire useless life. Trump has lashed out at Alvin Bragg, calling Bragg a racist, which is beyond funny, beyond hysterical, beyond insane. For Donald Trump to call Alvin Bragg a racist winds up someplace in a different dimension. It is so goddamn outrageous. Jesus. And Trump also has said the investigation is politically motivated, which is what the little piglet, the little Christian zombie, who was interviewed extensively over the weekend, the vice president who stared at the back of his head for 4 years, seemed to feel the same thing, that it's all politically motivated, even though Trump, in a manner of speaking, had put out a contract on Mike Pence. I mean, there it was. Mike Pence let us down, fit him for some concrete booties. And still Mike Pence. What a miserable little shit he is, huh? But still Mike Pence is going to defend his exalted leader to the very end. Now, Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney, and one of his aides have already been the target of threats on Trump's toy social media platform. And in an email, according to the New York Times, the email to his staff over the weekend, no, this is reported by Politico, Alvin Bragg assured prosecutors and other staff that he had been coordinating with the police department to ensure their safety. Well, when they finally do go after this son of a bitch, I would think that every one of the court officials and the prosecutor officials who were involved in serving this filthy animal with a subpoena, not a subpoena, but an arrest warrant, that they be fully armed. I mean, fully armed. AR-15 armed. And then how they respond to the brown shirts will be up to them, but I hope they have been trained to, in situations like this, to make sure they take headshots. We'll see, won't we? Alvin Bragg wrote in an email to his staff, quote, "We do not tolerate attempts to intimidate our office or threaten the rule of law in New York City. Our law enforcement partners will ensure that any specific or credible threats against the office will be fully investigated." Investigated? Okay. I guess you have to put it in legal terms like that, in terms that are not quite as incendiary as the kind of shit I'm talking about today. But Alvin Bragg is an officer of the court, and I am just a podcaster, right? Now, one thing for sure, Alvin Bragg's security detail, and that's staffed by New York Police Department detectives. That security detail will probably expand now that Trump made his post on Saturday about take our nation back and all this other horse shit. In fact, the police in New York City have already evaluated risks to Alvin Bragg's personal safety. That's according to, how does the Times put it? According to a person with knowledge on the matter. Okay, fine. Now, what else? Oh, yeah. After the Orange Vomit's call for another insurrection, there were scattered signs that his followers were planning to protest. A bunch of little pricks in New York called the New York Young Republican Club. That organization of little whiners announced on Sunday that it would hold, quote, a peaceful protest of Alvin Bragg's heinous attack on Trump at an undisclosed location in Lower Manhattan tonight, Monday evening. Can't you see these young Republicans of New York? Huh? Oh, my God. This is the darkest kind of comedy. There's going to be bloodshed. You know there is. Before this ridiculous bullshit is over, there will be bloodshed. There will probably be some death. There will be destruction. You know this. You know this. And in the middle of it, we're going to have these little prickish young Republicans, these little white boys in Manhattan protesting. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading
progressive radio hosts and pundits like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.